What would you do if you were in the same circumstances with the characters in the following stories? We would very love to know, and you could share it below under the comment sections. Now, let the stories unfold.
The envelope was thick. I could feel the weight of it in my hands even before I opened it. The kind of weight that comes from crisp $100 bills stacked together. $10,000, if my estimate was correct. Maybe more. I set it on my desk without opening it and looked at the man sitting across from me. He was younger than I expected, maybe 35, with the kind of face that belonged in a cologne ad rather than a mob lawyer's office. Expensive suit, Italian shoes, and a smile that probably worked on most people. It didn't work on me. "Miss Chen," he said, my last name coming out smooth and practiced. "My client is prepared to be very generous in exchange for your cooperation." "Cooperation?" I repeated, leaning back in my chair. The springs squeaked. I really needed to oil them, but the sound gave me a second to think. "That's an interesting word for what you're actually asking." His smile didn't waver. "My client simply wants to ensure that certain information remains confidential. The contents of that envelope are a token of good faith. Once we have an agreement, there would be substantially more." I looked at the envelope again. $10,000. 3 months of rent on my crappy office in this crappy building. 6 months of groceries. A year of student loan payments on the private investigation license I'd gotten after washing out of the police academy. $10,000 just to make a phone call and say I'd made a mistake. That the photos I'd taken were blurry. That I couldn't positively identify anyone. That my client, the wife of a man who'd disappeared 3 weeks ago, should probably just accept that her husband had run off with another woman. Except I knew that wasn't what happened. I knew because I'd followed Marcus Webb for 2 weeks before he disappeared. I knew he'd been skimming money from his job as an accountant for Belasanti Industries. I knew he'd been planning to run, but not with another woman. He'd been planning to run to the FBI with evidence of massive money laundering. And I knew, because I'd been watching from across the street with my camera, that 3 men had grabbed him outside his apartment at 2 in the morning, thrown him in a black SUV, and driven away. I knew one of those men was Dante Belasante's personal driver. "How much is substantially more?" I asked, because I wanted to know exactly what they thought my silence was worth. The lawyer's smile widened. $1 million, transferred to any account you specify, untraceable, tax-free, yours to do with as you please. $1 million. I could pay off my student loans, get a real office. Hell, I could retire from private investigation entirely and open that bookshop I'd always fantasized about. All I had to do was lie to a grieving woman and let her husband's murderers walk free. "That's a lot of money," I said carefully. "It is. My client believes in compensating people fairly for their discretion." "Your client being Dante Bellasante." The lawyer's smile finally faltered. "I didn't say." "You didn't have to. Marcus Webb worked for Bellasante Industries. The men who took him were driving a car registered to a shell company that owns 3 buildings Bellasante uses for storage. And you." I pulled up his bar registration on my computer, turning the screen so he could see. "Work for Goldstein, Marsh and Associates, which has represented the Bellasante family for 3 generations." His face went very still. "You've done your homework. It's literally my job. Then you understand the position you're in." The warmth had left his voice. "My client is offering you a generous sum to avoid complications. I would strongly advise you to take it." "Or what?" "I'm sorry?" I stood up, walked around my desk, and picked up the envelope. It was heavy. Definitely more than 10,000. I opened it and counted. 15,000 in hundreds. "You're threatening me," I said, still counting. Politely, but that's what "I would strongly advise" means in mob lawyer speak. "So I'm asking, or what? What happens if I don't take your $1 million and look away? The lawyer stood as well, adjusting his cufflinks in a gesture that was probably meant to be intimidating. Miss Chen, you seem like an intelligent woman. Surely you understand that there are consequences to making powerful people unhappy. I'm aware. I'm also aware that I sent copies of everything I have: photos, surveillance logs, Marcus Webb's financial records, everything, to 3 different people with instructions to send it all to the FBI if anything happens to me. This was only partially true. I'd sent copies to my best friend Jenny and my lawyer, with vague instructions about if something happens, but I hadn't been specific about the FBI. Still, he didn't need to know that. That would be unfortunate, the lawyer said slowly, for both of us. Which is why I'm going to make you a counteroffer. I set the envelope back on my desk. Take this back to Mr. Belisante. Tell him I'm not interested in his money. Tell him I want a meeting. A meeting. Face to face. Him and me. No lawyers, no intermediaries. He wants my silence? He can ask for it himself. The lawyer stared at me like I'd grown a second head. You want to meet with Dante Belisante? That's what I said. Do you have any idea who you're dealing with? A man who had Marcus Webb killed to protect his money laundering operation. A man who thinks he can buy his way out of murder charges. A man who's probably not used to people saying no. I smiled. Yeah, I know exactly who I'm dealing with. Question is, does he know who he's dealing with? The lawyer picked up the envelope, his movements stiff with barely controlled anger. You're making a mistake, Miss Chen. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. After he left, I sat back down and tried to stop my hands from shaking. What the hell was I doing? I'd just rejected $1 million and demanded a meeting with one of the most dangerous men in the city. The smart move would have been to take the money, or at least negotiate for more. But I kept thinking about Marcus Webb's wife, Sarah, sitting in my office 3 weeks ago, crying because her husband had vanished and the police wouldn't take her seriously. I kept thinking about the wedding photo on her desk at home, Marcus smiling, young, in love. I kept thinking about how that smile had looked when 3 men dragged him into a car, his face twisted in terror. $1 million was a lot of money, but some things shouldn't have a price. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Meeting approved. Tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Address to follow. Come alone. I stared at the message for a long moment, my stomach twisting with equal parts fear and adrenaline. Then I typed back, "See you then." The address came through at noon the next day, a restaurant called Il Chino, in the part of town where even the parking meters probably cost more than my car. No surprise there. Men like Dante Belisante didn't meet in diners. I spent the afternoon preparing. First stop, my lawyer's office, where I updated my will and left a sealed envelope with instructions to open it if I didn't check in by midnight. Second stop, Jenny's apartment, where I gave her a thumb drive and made her promise to send it to every news outlet in the city if I disappeared. "You're scaring me," she said, holding the thumb drive like it might explode. "What is on this?" "Insurance. Hopefully I'll never need it, but you're meeting with a mob boss who kills people." She grabbed my arm. "Maya, don't do this. Just give the evidence to the police and let them handle it. You know the police won't do anything. Half of them are probably on Belisante's payroll anyway. Then give it to the FBI. And watch them bungle the case for 2 years while Sarah Webb waits for answers?" I shook my head. "No. This is the fastest way to get justice for Marcus. Or to get yourself killed." "I'm not going to get killed." "How do you know?" "Because I had leverage," I wanted to say. Because I had evidence that could destroy Dante Belisante's entire operation. Because he needed me alive more than he needed me dead. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I hugged Jenny and promised I'd be careful. Third stop. My apartment. where I changed into the only dress I owned that didn't make me look like I'd bought it at a thrift store. Black, simple, professional. I pulled my hair back in a bun and applied makeup with a steady hand that betrayed none of my nerves. Looking at myself in the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back. Maya Chen, private investigator, who lived on ramen and cold coffee and mostly worked cheating spouse cases. That woman wouldn't have demanded a meeting with Dante Bellasante. But apparently, that's exactly what I'd done. I arrived at Il Chino 15 minutes early and spent the time sitting in my car, watching the entrance. The restaurant was all glass and warm lighting, the kind of place where appetizers cost $50. A valet took keys from guests in luxury cars while a doorman in white gloves held the door. This was a mistake. I should leave. I should... My phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. Stop sitting in your car. You're making my security nervous. Come inside. I looked around but couldn't see anyone watching me, which meant they were good. Okay then. I got out of my car, handed my keys to a very confused valet who clearly didn't know what to do with my 10-year-old Honda, and walked inside like I belonged there. The hostess greeted me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Miss Chen, Mr. Bellasante is waiting. Right this way. She led me through the main dining room, which was full of beautiful people eating beautiful food, to a private room in the back. She knocked twice, opened the door, and gestured me inside. The room was smaller than I expected, intimate even. One table, two chairs, candles already lit. And standing by the window, looking out at the city, was Dante Bellasante. I'd seen photos, of course, newspaper articles about his legitimate business ventures, society page coverage of charity galas, courthouse sketches from the 3 separate trials that had failed to convict him of anything. But photos didn't capture the presence of the man. He was tall, over 6 feet, with the kind of build that came from personal trainers and expensive gyms. His suit probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Dark hair, sharp features, and when he turned to look at me, eyes that were almost black in the candlelight. Miss Chen, he said, his voice accented and smooth. Thank you for coming. Did I have a choice? A slight smile. Everyone has choices. You could have taken the money. You could have gone to the police. Instead, you chose this. He gestured to the empty chair. Please, sit. I took the liberty of ordering for us. I'm not here to have dinner with you. Nevertheless, we will eat while we talk. I find that good food makes difficult conversations more palatable. He pulled out my chair, and after a moment's hesitation, I sat. He took the seat across from me, and immediately a waiter appeared with wine, pouring for both of us before vanishing again. To new acquaintances, Bellasante said, raising his glass. I didn't toast. Let's skip the pleasantries. You wanted this meeting. I'm here. Talk. He took a sip of wine, studying me over the rim of his glass. You're very direct. I'm very busy, and I'm not interested in playing games. No games. Very well. He set down his glass. You have something I need. I'm prepared to compensate you generously for it. The photos and financial records. Among other things, my lawyer mentioned that you've been quite thorough in your investigation. That's what I was hired to do. By Marcus Webb's wife. The use of past tense wasn't lost on me. Is he dead? Bellasante's expression didn't change. You seem to believe he is. 3 men grabbed him off the street. He hasn't been seen since. I've investigated enough missing persons cases to know what that usually means. Usually. Not always. So he's alive? I didn't say that. You didn't deny it either. The waiter returned with appetizers I didn't remember ordering, some kind of seafood thing that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Bellasante picked up his fork, and after a moment, I did the same. The food was incredible. I hated that it was incredible. Let me be frank with you, Miss Chen, Belisante said, after we'd eaten in silence for a few moments. Marcus Webb was stealing from me. He was also gathering evidence to use against me in exchange for immunity from prosecution. This made him a liability. So you killed him? I didn't say that. I said he was a liability. How that liability was addressed is not something I'm prepared to discuss. But you want me to believe he's alive? I want you to understand the situation you've inserted yourself into. Marcus Webb was not an innocent man. He was a criminal who got caught and tried to make a deal. He was trying to do the right thing. Was he? Or was he trying to save himself from prison? Belisante leaned forward slightly. You've seen his financial records. You know he was skimming money long before he decided to play informant. If he'd gone to the FBI, he would have been prosecuted along with everyone else. This wasn't noble. It was self-preservation. I wanted to argue, but he had a point. Marcus Webb had been stealing for months before he got cold feet. That doesn't give you the right to kill him. Again, I haven't admitted to killing anyone, but hypothetically speaking, if someone in my organization posed a threat to hundreds of employees, to dozens of legitimate businesses, to families who depend on those businesses, would I have an obligation to protect them? Not through murder. Through whatever means necessary. His voice was cold now, the charm stripped away. This is not a world of moral absolutes, Miss Chen. It's a world of difficult choices and acceptable losses. Acceptable to who? To me, because I'm the one who has to make them. The waiter returned to clear our appetizer plates and bring the main course. Some kind of pasta that smelled amazing. I shouldn't be eating. I should be getting out of here. But I stayed. You said you were prepared to compensate me generously, I said, twirling pasta on my fork. Your lawyer mentioned $1 million. That was the opening offer. I'm prepared to go higher. How much higher? 2 million. Cash, gold, cryptocurrency, whatever format you prefer. Completely untraceable. $2 million. More money than I would make in my entire life doing private investigation work. And in exchange, you destroy all copies of your evidence. You tell Sarah Webb that you couldn't find anything useful. You close the case and move on with your life. A very comfortable life, with $2 million. Exactly. I set down my fork and looked at him directly. No. His expression barely changed, but something in his eyes went very still. No? I'm not interested in your money. Everyone is interested in money, Miss Chen. Not me, not for this. Then what do you want? This was it. The moment I'd been building toward since demanding this meeting. The moment where I either got what I came for or ended up as another missing person case. I want the truth, I said. About what happened to Marcus Webb. The whole truth. Not lawyer speak and hypotheticals. And I want justice. Justice. If he's alive, I want to know where. If he's dead, I want his body returned to his wife so she can have closure. And I want the men who took him held accountable. Belisante stared at me for a long moment. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. A genuine sound of surprise and amusement. You want me to turn myself in? I want you to do the right thing. The right thing. He shook his head, still smiling. Miss Chen, I admire your principles. I truly do. But you're asking for something impossible. Why is it impossible? Because I built this organization over 20 years. I employ hundreds of people. I have obligations, responsibilities. Turning myself in would destroy all of that. Then rebuild it. Legitimately this time. It's not that simple. It never is. But you could start. He studied me with those dark eyes, and I felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. You really believe that, don't you? That I could just walk away from this life and start over? People do it all the time. Not people like me. Why not? Because... He stopped, seeming to reconsider what he was going to say. Because there are consequences to walking away. For me, for my people, for everyone connected to my organization. There are also consequences to staying. How many more people have to disappear before you decide it's not worth it? That's not a fair question. Fair? You're lecturing me about fair? I leaned forward. Marcus Webb is probably dead. His wife is devastated. And you want to pay me $2 million to pretend none of it happened. Don't talk to me about fair. What do you want me to say, Miss Chen? That I'm sorry? That I regret the choices I've made? Would that change anything? It would be a start. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at his wine glass. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. Marcus Webb is dead. He died 3 days after my men took him. It was quick. He didn't suffer. His body was disposed of in a way that ensures it will never be found. The confirmation hit me harder than I expected. I'd known, of course, but knowing and hearing it said out loud were different things. Who gave the order? I asked quietly. I did. Why? Because he was a threat. Because I had to protect my organization. Because... He stopped again. Because that's what I do. I make the hard choices so other people don't have to. That's a convenient rationalization. It's the truth, however uncomfortable it makes you. The waiter came back to clear our plates. Neither of us had finished eating. He offered dessert menus, but Belisante waved him away. So that's it? I said when we were alone again. Marcus Webb is dead, his body is gone, and you expect me to just accept that? No, I expect you to make a choice. He pulled out his phone and typed something. A moment later, my phone buzzed. I've just transferred $3 million to an offshore account in your name. The account information is in the text I just sent you. I looked at my phone. Sure enough, there was a message with bank routing numbers and access codes. 3 million, I said, plus a guarantee of safety. For you, for anyone you care about. My people won't touch you. You can walk out of here tonight and live your life however you want. All I have to do is destroy the evidence and lie to Sarah Webb. Yes. I looked at the text message again. $3 million. Financial security for the rest of my life. All I had to do was compromise every principle I had. Or? I asked. Or what? You said I have a choice. What's the other option? Belisante's expression hardened. The other option is that you continue to refuse my offer. In which case, I'll have to consider you a threat to my organization. You'll kill me. I'll do what's necessary. Even though I have insurance, even though everything I know goes to the FBI if something happens to me, you're bluffing. Am I? We stared at each other across the table and I realized we'd reached an impasse. He didn't believe I'd actually set up a dead man's switch. I wasn't sure I believed he'd actually kill me. Let me make a counteroffer, I said. I'm listening. You give me Marcus Webb's body, you let me return it to his wife, and in exchange, I'll destroy half of the evidence I have. Half. Half. The financial records? The photos of your men taking him? Those go away. But I keep copies of everything else. Insurance, like you said. So you can blackmail me later. So we both have something to lose if this goes wrong. Mutually assured destruction. You can't come after me without triggering the release of evidence. I can't release the evidence without losing my leverage over you. He considered this, fingers drumming on the table. And what do I get out of this arrangement besides a perpetual threat hanging over my head? You get me not going to the FBI right now. You get to keep running your organization and... I hesitated, then committed to the gamble. And you get a chance to prove you're more than just a killer. Excuse me? Return Marcus Webb's body. Let his wife have closure. It doesn't undo what you did, but it's something. It's a choice that isn't about protecting yourself or your organization. It's about basic human decency. You think I care about human decency? I think you care about how you're seen, about legacy, about whether you're remembered as just another crime lord or as something more. Something shifted in his expression. I'd hit a nerve. You're asking me to take a significant risk, he said slowly. Returning a body that's connected to my organization, that could be traced back to me. Can be done safely if you're as smart as everyone says you are, and it gives you something you don't have right now. What's that? My cooperation. Willing cooperation, not forced silence bought with money. I leaned forward. You want me to look away? Give me a reason to. Show me you're capable of doing the right thing, even when it's hard. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to the window, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city. You're either very brave or very stupid, Miss Chen. I've been told both. You realize that if I agree to this, you'll be forever tied to me, to my organization. The information you have makes you a permanent liability. Or a permanent asset. Depends on your perspective. He turned back to face me. Why are you really doing this? And don't tell me it's about justice for Marcus Webb. There's something else. He was perceptive. I'd give him that. My father was a police officer, I said quietly. 20 years on the force. Good cop, dedicated, honest. He was killed during a robbery when I was 16. The shooter got away. No witnesses, no evidence, no closure. My mother spent years trying to find answers and got nothing. I'm sorry. I don't want your sympathy. I want you to understand why I can't let Sarah Webb go through what my mother went through, not if I can prevent it. So, this is personal. Everything is personal, Mr. Belisante. We just pretend otherwise to make difficult decisions easier. He walked back to the table but didn't sit. Instead, he stood over me, and I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. If I agree to this, he said, there are conditions. I'm listening. First, you destroy all copies of the financial records immediately, in front of me. Done. Second, the remaining evidence stays sealed unless I violate our agreement. If my organization moves against you or anyone you care about, then and only then do you release it. Agreed. Third. He paused. Third, you work for me. I blinked. What? You work for me, as a consultant. I have various business interests that could benefit from someone with your investigative skills. Legitimate business interests, he added, seeing my expression. I'm not asking you to cover up crimes. I'm asking you to help me run my legal operations more efficiently. You want to hire me? Yes, at a rate of $10,000 per week, plus expenses. You'll maintain your independence, keep your office, your other clients. But when I need your services, you make yourself available. Why? Because you're good at what you do. Because you have integrity, which is surprisingly rare in my world. And because, he smiled slightly, because if you're working for me, I know where you are and what you're doing. It's easier than having you investigated constantly. That's honest, at least. I find that honesty is undervalued in negotiations. So, do we have a deal? I should have said no, should have rejected his offer and walked away with my evidence intact. But he was offering me everything I'd asked for. Marcus Webb's body, a guarantee of safety, and enough money to actually make a difference in my life. All I had to do was tie myself to a criminal organization. I have one more condition, I said. Of course you do. You start distancing yourself from the illegal operations. I don't expect you to shut everything down overnight, but I want to see progress. Movement toward legitimacy. Because if I'm going to be associated with you, even as a consultant, I need to be able to sleep at night. That's asking a lot. So is working for a mob boss. He laughed again, that same genuine sound of surprise. You really don't know how to be intimidated, do you? I'm terrified right now. I'm just good at hiding it. That makes two of us. He extended his hand. Deal. Marcus Webb's body will be anonymously delivered to his wife within 48 hours. You'll destroy the financial records tonight. And starting Monday, you're on my payroll. I stared at his hand for a moment, knowing that shaking it would change everything, that I'd be crossing a line I could never uncross. Then I thought about Sarah Webb, waiting for answers. I shook his hand. His grip was firm, warm, and lasted a fraction of a second longer than necessary. Welcome to the organization, Miss Chen. It's Maya, I said. If we're going to be working together, you should probably use my first name. Maya. He tested it out. I'm Dante. I know who you are. You know my reputation. That's not the same thing. Before I could respond, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen and frowned. I need to take this. Marco will drive you home. I have my car, which will be delivered to you tomorrow. Tonight, Marco drives you. Non-negotiable. You're too valuable to risk in a car accident. He answered the phone and walked out of the room, speaking rapid Italian. I sat there for a moment, trying to process what I'd just agreed to. A man appeared in the doorway, tall, scarred, dangerous looking. Miss Chen? I'm Marco. I'll be your driver. Of course you will. The ride home was silent. Marco didn't seem inclined to conversation, which was fine. I needed time to think. I'd done it. I'd negotiated with Dante Bellasante and somehow come out with what I wanted. Marcus Webb's body would be returned. Sarah Webb would have closure. And I'd have enough money to actually make my investigation business work. All it cost me was my principles and my association with a criminal organization. My phone buzzed. A text from Dante. Destroy the financial records. I'll be watching. I looked up at Marco. Does he have cameras in my apartment? Marco's expression didn't change. Mr. Bellasante takes security seriously. That's not an answer. It's the answer you're getting. Fair enough. When we reached my building, Marco walked me to my door. Mr. Bellasante will be in touch about your first assignment. In the meantime, if you need anything, call me. He handed me a card with just a phone number. Anything at all. Are you my handler now? I'm your point of contact. There's a difference. After he left, I went inside and locked the door. Then I pulled out my laptop and opened the folder containing Marcus Webb's financial records. 3 months of work. Hundreds of hours of analysis. Proof of massive money laundering. I hesitated, cursor hovering over the delete button. Then I thought about Sarah Webb's face when I'd told her I'd found something. The hope in her eyes. I thought about my father, shot in the street, case still unsolved. I thought about Dante Bellasante, offering me $3 million just to look away. And I thought about the deal I'd just made. I deleted the files. Then I emptied the trash. Then I ran a secure wipe program to make sure they were really gone. My phone rang. Dante. It's done, I said without preamble. I know. I watched. You really do have cameras in my apartment. I have cameras everywhere that matters. You'll get used to it. Will I? Yes. Because you're smart enough to understand why it's necessary. He paused. Thank you, Maya. For what? For trusting me. I know it wasn't easy. I don't trust you. I'm gambling that you'll keep your word because it's in your best interest. That's even better than trust. Trust can be broken. Self-interest is reliable. Another pause. Sleep well. Tomorrow is a new beginning for both of us. He hung up before I could respond. I sat on my couch in my tiny apartment and stared at my laptop screen, at the empty space where the financial records had been. I'd made a deal with the devil. Or at least with a very dangerous man who employed the devil's methods. But Sarah Webb would get her husband's body back. She'd have closure. And maybe, just maybe, I could push Dante Bellasante toward something resembling legitimacy. It was probably a stupid hope, but it was the hope that had made me shake his hand. My phone buzzed one more time. Another text from Dante. One more thing. The 3 million is still in that account. Consider it a signing bonus. You earned it. I stared at the message for a long time, then I typed back, I'll donate it to a victim's fund. His response came immediately. No, you won't. You'll keep it because you're practical enough to know that having financial security gives you power. And you'll need power for what comes next. What comes next? That's what we'll figure out together. Good night, Maya. I set down my phone and looked around my apartment. Nothing had physically changed. Same crappy furniture, same water stain on the ceiling, same life I'd been living yesterday. But everything was different now. I'd rejected $1 million, demanded the truth, and somehow ended up on a mob boss's payroll. And the scariest part? I wasn't sure I regretted it. 2 days later, an anonymous package was delivered to Sarah Webb's house. Inside was Marcus Webb's body, prepared by a professional mortician, looking peaceful. Also inside was a note. I'm sorry for your loss. He didn't suffer. The police investigated, of course, but there was no evidence linking the body to anyone. No witnesses, no forensics, nothing. Sarah Webb got to bury her husband. She got closure, and I got a phone call from Dante. Thank you, Sarah said when I visited her after the funeral. I know you had something to do with this. I just asked the right questions, I said, which was technically true. Whatever you did, thank you. At least now I can say goodbye properly. After I left her house, I sat in my car and cried. Not for Marcus Webb exactly, but for what I'd become, for the lines I'd crossed, for the fact that I'd made a deal with a man who'd ordered a murder, and I couldn't quite make myself regret it. My phone rang. Dante. How is she? He asked. As well as can be expected. The funeral was nice. Good. I'm glad we could give her that. You killed her husband. Yes. And I returned his body so she could have peace. Both things are true. I didn't know what to say to that. Your first assignment starts tomorrow, Dante continued. I need you to investigate one of my property managers. I suspect he's skimming rent payments. That's legitimately legal work. Yes. I told you I had legitimate business interests. Where do I start? Come to my office tomorrow at 9. We'll go over everything. Your office. Yes. I'll text you the address. Dress professionally. You'll be meeting other members of my staff. Dante? Yes? Are we really doing this? Am I really working for you? We made a deal, Maya. I keep my word. Do you keep yours? Yes. Then I'll see you tomorrow. 9 a.m. Don't be late. He hung up. I sat in my car outside Sarah Webb's house and wondered what I'd gotten myself into. Then I drove home, fed my cat, and picked out something professional to wear to my first day working for a mob boss, because apparently, that was my life now. Dante's office was not what I expected. I'd imagined something dark and intimidating, like a movie mob boss's lair with expensive leather furniture and an air of menace. Instead, it was bright and modern, located on the 20th floor of a downtown high-rise. The receptionist greeted me with a genuine smile and immediately called back to announce my arrival. Mr. Belisante is expecting you. Conference room B. Would you like coffee? Water? Coffee would be great. She led me down a hallway lined with abstract art to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Dante was already there, standing at the windows with his back to the door. He turned when I entered. Today he was in business casual, dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, no tie. He looked younger than he had at the restaurant. Less intimidating. Maya, right on time, have a seat. I sat at the large conference table. A folder sat at my place, along with a tablet and a coffee mug with the Belisante Industries logo. Welcome to your first day, Dante said, sitting across from me. That folder contains everything I have on Richard Morrison, the property manager I mentioned. He oversees 3 apartment buildings I own in the North District. For the past 6 months, rental income has been declining despite occupancy rates remaining stable. I believe he's pocketing the difference. I opened the folder and found detailed financial reports, tenant lists, and Morrison's employment history. This is very thorough. I have good accountants, but I need someone who can investigate without Morrison knowing he's being investigated. Someone who can pose as a potential tenant, ask questions, maybe befriend some of the current residents. You want me to go undercover? I want you to do what you do best: find the truth. I flipped through the documents, my investigator brain automatically organizing information. This will take at least 2 weeks. Maybe more if Morrison is careful. Take whatever time you need. You'll be paid whether it takes 2 weeks or 2 months. 10,000 per week. Yes. That was insane money for what was essentially a straightforward investigation, but I wasn't going to argue. I'll need an expense account. If I'm posing as a potential tenant, I'll need to look the part. Plus bribes for building staff, equipment for surveillance. Already set up. He slid a credit card across the table. Company card. Use it for any expenses related to the investigation. No limit, but be reasonable. I picked up the card. Maya Chen was embossed on it, along with Belisante Industries, consultant. This is real. Of course it's real. You work for me now. You need proper resources. Most of my clients pay me $2,000 per case. Most of your clients are suspicious spouses trying to catch their partners cheating. I'm not most clients. He leaned forward. I expect excellence, Maya. I expect thoroughness, discretion, and results. In exchange, you'll be compensated extremely well. Fair? More than fair. Good. The tablet has secure communication software. Use it to send me updates. Don't email, don't text from your personal phone. Everything goes through encrypted channels. I picked up the tablet and powered it on. It was already set up with my name and photo. You really are serious about security. I have to be. In my world, information is currency. Information leaks can cost millions of dollars or cost lives. His expression was grave. Which is why I need to know you understand the importance of confidentiality. I'm not going to tell anyone what I'm working on. I know. But I need you to understand the consequences if you do. Not threats, he added quickly, seeing my expression. Just reality. You're now part of an organization that has enemies. Those enemies would love to know what you're investigating, who you're investigating, what you find. If that information leaks, people get hurt. Yes. So please, take this seriously. Use the encrypted systems. Don't discuss your work with anyone, including your friend Jenny or your lawyer. And if anything seems suspicious, if anyone approaches you asking questions, if you notice you're being followed, contact Marco immediately. You really think I'm in danger? I think you're valuable, which makes you a target. Better to be paranoid and safe than trusting and dead. Hard to argue with that logic. We spent the next hour going over the details of the Morrison investigation. Dante was surprisingly hands-on, asking intelligent questions and offering suggestions that actually made sense. Whatever else he was, he clearly understood business. One last thing, he said as I was gathering my materials to leave. Every Friday, my senior staff meets for lunch. It's casual, a chance to discuss ongoing projects and build relationships. I'd like you to join us this week. Is that necessary? I'm just a consultant. You're not just anything, Maya. You're my investigator. And that means you're part of the inner circle. People need to know who you are and what you do. And what will you tell them about me? The truth. That you're a private investigator I've hired to help with internal security and personnel issues. That you'll occasionally be conducting investigations on behalf of the company. And that you have my complete trust. The last part made me uncomfortable. Do I? You kept your word about the financial records. You negotiated in good faith. You've done nothing to make me doubt you. He stood. And frankly, the fact that you turned down $3 million tells me more about your character than anything else could. Most people would say turning down $3 million shows poor judgment. Most people lack principles. You don't. That makes you unusual, valuable. I wasn't sure how to respond to that, so I didn't. As I was leaving, Dante walked me to the elevator. How are you doing? Really? The question surprised me. What do you mean? You made a difficult choice 2 nights ago. You partnered with someone you probably see as a criminal. You're compromising your principles to work for me. That can't be easy. It's not. But you're still here. I made a deal. I keep my word too. That's not the only reason. He stepped closer. You're here because you're curious. About me, about my organization, about whether there's something salvageable in all of this. You think you're salvageable? I think I'm trying to be. And I think you're the kind of person who believes in redemption. The elevator arrived, and he held the doctor for me. Friday, 1 p.m. Lunch is catered, but if you have dietary restrictions, let the receptionist know. As the elevator doors closed, I found myself thinking about what he'd said. Was I here because I believed in redemption, or was I just rationalizing a morally compromising decision with pretty words? I didn't have an answer. The Morrison investigation took exactly 14 days. I posed as a potential tenant named Sarah Lee, wore business casual clothes that made me look successful enough to afford upscale rent, and spent hours touring apartments and chatting with current residents. What I found was worse than simple embezzlement. Richard Morrison wasn't just skimming rent payments. He was also running a side business of illegal sublets, taking cash payments from undocumented tenants and keeping them off the official books. He was charging these desperate people double the normal rent because they had no legal recourse. It was cruel and exploitative, and exactly the kind of thing I hated. I documented everything: photos, recordings, financial records, and compiled it into a comprehensive report. Then I sent it to Dante through the encrypted tablet. His response came within an hour. Come to the office. Now. When I arrived, Dante was waiting in the same conference room. But this time, he wasn't alone. Marco was there, along with 2 other men I didn't recognize, both in expensive suits, both watching me with expressions that ranged from curious to hostile. Gentlemen, this is Maya Chen, Dante said. Maya, this is Antonio Rossi and Vincent Marchetti. They oversee property management and human resources, respectively. I nodded to them. They nodded back. Maya, walk us through what you found. I did, laying out the evidence methodically. The more I talked, the darker Dante's expression became. The other men looked increasingly uncomfortable. When I finished, Antonio Rossi spoke first. This is a disaster. If this gets out, if anyone connects this to our organization, it won't get out, Dante said coldly, because we're going to handle it. Maya, recommendations? Fire Morrison immediately, report him to the police for fraud and exploitation, make restitution to the tenants he cheated, and hire a property manager who isn't a sociopath. Agreed. Antonio, make it happen. I want Morrison gone by end of day. Maya will provide you with a list of affected tenants. Work with accounting to calculate appropriate restitution, generous restitution. That could be expensive, Vincent said carefully. I don't care. These people were exploited by someone working for me. We make it right. The firmness in his voice surprised me. He actually meant it. There's one more thing, I said. The undocumented tenants. If we fire Morrison and report him to the police, they'll scatter. They'll end up on the street, or in worse situations. What do you suggest? Dante asked. Let them stay. Officially. Reduce their rent to market rate. Get them proper leases. Help them find paths to legal residency if possible. Antonio looked like he might argue, but Dante cut him off. Do it. All of it. Maya, stay after. I want to discuss next steps. After the others left, Dante sat heavily in a chair. 14 days, and you found something that would have destroyed my reputation if it had gone public. That's what you hired me for. I hired you to find a thief. Instead, you found a predator operating under my nose, exploiting vulnerable people using my resources. He looked at me. Thank you. You're thanking me? For being thorough. For caring about the victims. For recommending solutions instead of just identifying problems. He stood and walked to the windows. This is what I meant when I said I wanted to move toward legitimacy. I can't do that if people like Morrison are representing my organization. There are probably others like him. I know. Which is why I want you to audit all of my property managers. All of them. Same process. Go undercover, dig deep, find out who's legitimate and who's corrupt. That could take months. I have time. And more importantly, I need this done right. I need someone I can trust to tell me the truth, even when it's ugly. Why me? You have security people, accountants, who are all part of the system, who might be compromised or complicit. You're an outsider. You have no loyalty to anyone except your own conscience. He turned to face me. That makes you dangerous and valuable in equal measure. I thought about Morrison, about the families he'd exploited. I'll do it. On one condition. Another condition? Always. You give me authority to recommend terminations and criminal referrals without checking with you first. I find someone dirty. They're gone. No debate. No second chances. That's a lot of power. You said you trust me. We stared at each other for a moment. Then he smiled. Fine. You have the authority. But Maya? Use it wisely. Over the next 3 months, I audited 19 property managers. I found 4 more like Morrison, corrupt, exploitative, using their positions to prey on vulnerable people. I recommended termination for all of them, plus criminal referrals for 2. Dante backed me every time. I also found something unexpected. Some of Dante's employees were genuinely good people doing legitimately good work. Property managers who went above and beyond for their tenants. Maintenance staff who actually cared about keeping buildings safe and habitable. Office workers who processed rent assistance applications with compassion. It turned out that Dante's organization wasn't entirely criminal. A lot of it was exactly what he'd claimed, legitimate business operations run by decent people. That didn't absolve him of the illegal parts, but it complicated my view of him. The Friday lunches became routine. Senior staff meetings where we discussed ongoing projects, shared information, and built working relationships. I was initially uncomfortable being around people who definitely knew about Dante's illegal activities, but gradually I realized that most of them were just trying to do their jobs and pay their bills. They weren't monsters. They were people. Dante and I developed a working relationship that was professional, but oddly comfortable. He would call with investigation requests, and I would deliver results. He never questioned my methods or my recommendations. He just trusted me to do my job. And slowly, despite my better judgment, I started to trust him too. It was during this time that I noticed something interesting. Dante was actively distancing himself from his criminal operations. I never saw direct evidence, but there were signs. Meetings that ended abruptly when I entered. Phone calls he took in private. Associates who visited briefly and left looking either relieved or angry. He was keeping his word about moving toward legitimacy. Then came the Friday lunch where everything changed. I arrived at the office to find unusual tension. People were speaking in hushed voices, and Marco was stationed outside the conference room instead of waiting in the lobby like usual. "What's going on?" I asked him. "Family meeting. Mr. Belisante said you should wait in his office." "Family meeting? It's complicated. He'll explain. I waited in Dante's office for 45 minutes, looking at the books on his shelves, surprisingly eclectic: philosophy, history, business theory, and a full collection of Italian literature, before he finally appeared. He looked exhausted. "Sorry for the delay," he said, closing the door behind him. "Things are complicated right now." Marco said it was a family meeting. It was. My uncle and cousins have concerns about the direction of the organization. Concerns meaning they don't like that you're going legitimate. Concerns meaning they think I'm weak, that I've lost focus, that I'm putting the entire operation at risk. He poured himself a drink from the bar cart. Whiskey, neat, and downed it in one swallow. They want me to step aside. Can they do that? In theory, yes. This is a family business. If enough of the family votes against me, I can be removed as head of the organization. What happens if they remove you? My uncle Carlo takes over. And everything I've been working toward, the legitimacy, the distance from criminal operations, all of that ends. Carlo believes in the old ways: intimidation, violence, corruption. He'll undo years of progress. I sat down on the couch. "So, what are you going to do?" "I don't know." He poured another drink but didn't consume it, just stared at the amber liquid. "I've been so focused on transitioning to legitimate business that I didn't notice my own family organizing against me. Do you have support? People who will stand with you?" "Some. Marco, Antonio, Vincent. They're loyal. But I don't have enough votes to counter Carlo if he pushes for a family vote." "When will that happen?" "Soon. Maybe as early as next week." He finally looked at me. "I'm telling you this because it might affect your position. If Carlo takes over, he'll likely terminate any consultants he didn't personally hire. You should prepare for that possibility." "You're firing me?" "I'm warning you. If I'm removed, you'll lose this income. You should plan accordingly." I should have been relieved. This was my chance to get out, to walk away from this increasingly complicated situation with my principles mostly intact. Instead, I heard myself say, "What if I helped?" "Helped how?" "I'm an investigator. If your uncle and cousins are organizing against you, there's probably evidence of that organization. Meetings, communications, financial arrangements. Let me find it." "Maya, these are dangerous people. If they discover you're investigating them, they won't discover it. I'm good at what I do. This isn't some property manager skimming rent. These are people who've killed for less than what you're proposing." "I know. But you kept your word to me. You returned Marcus Webb's body. You've been moving toward legitimacy. I'm not going to let your family undo that without a fight." He stared at me for a long moment. "Why do you care?" "Because..." I stopped, trying to articulate something I barely understood myself. "Because I've spent 3 months watching you try to be better than what you were. And because if your uncle takes over, people like Morrison will come back. The tenants you helped, the progress you made, all of it disappears. So this is about the tenants. Partially. It's also..." I took a breath. "It's also because I don't want to see you fail." Which is probably stupid and definitely complicated, but it's the truth. Something shifted in his expression. "You're invested in this. In me. Don't let it go to your head. Too late." He set down his drink and sat beside me on the couch. "If you do this, you'll be putting yourself at significant risk. Carlo isn't someone who forgives threats. Then we'll have to make sure he doesn't find out I'm a threat until it's too late." "You're serious about this?" "Completely." He studied my face, searching for doubt or hesitation. Whatever he saw must have satisfied him because he nodded slowly. "Okay. But we do this my way. You investigate, but Marco stays with you at all times. You don't meet with anyone in my family alone, and at the first sign of danger, you pull out. Agreed?" "Agreed." Then let's start with what we know. Carlo has been meeting with my cousins, Stefano and Luca. All three of them have been opposed to my legitimate business initiatives from the beginning. They've also been meeting with some of our older associates, the ones who came up in the organization during my father's time. Building a coalition. Exactly. If I can prove they're actively conspiring against me, I can have them removed from the family business entirely. Family law allows for expulsion in cases of betrayal. Family law? Our organization has rules, Maya. They may not be legal rules, but they're enforced nonetheless. One of those rules is that you don't plot against the head of the family. If I can prove Carlo and my cousins violated that rule, I can have them voted out. How do I prove conspiracy? Find their communications. They have to be planning this somewhere. Emails, texts, recorded meetings. Carlo is old school, but he's not stupid. There will be evidence. Where do I start? With Stefano. He's the youngest, least experienced, also the most arrogant. If anyone in that group is sloppy, it's him. Dante pulled out his tablet and brought up a file. Stefano Bellasante, 28 years old, Northwestern University, business degree. Came into the family business 3 years ago. Currently oversees our import-export operations. Import-export in quotes meaning smuggling. Very likely, though I've never been able to prove it. Stefano has been careful to keep his illegal activities separate from the legitimate business. But if he's conspiring with Carlo, there might be overlap. What do you want me to find? Anything that proves they're working together to remove me. Meeting records, financial transfers, communications, whatever you can get. I looked at the information on the tablet. This could take weeks. We don't have weeks. The family vote could happen any time. You need to work fast. Fast and thorough are usually mutually exclusive. Then find a way to make them compatible. Because if Carlo wins, you're not the only one who loses, Maya. Everyone who's benefited from my push toward legitimacy loses. All those tenants we helped, they'll be back on the street. All those corrupt managers I fired, they'll be rehired. Everything we've built dissolves. He was right. And despite my reservations about working for a mob boss, I'd seen genuine good come from Dante's attempts at legitimacy. I'll find something, I said. I promise. Be careful, please. I've become rather attached to having you around. The admission was unexpectedly vulnerable. I found myself smiling despite the seriousness of the situation. Attached? Is that so surprising? Kind of, yeah. You're a mob boss. I assumed attachment was a liability in your world. It is. Which is why I've avoided it for years. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, the gesture intimate and gentle. And then you walked into my restaurant, refused my money, and demanded I be a better man. Hard not to be attached to someone like that. My heart was beating too fast. Dante, I know. This is complicated. You work for me. I'm a criminal trying to go legitimate. You're an investigator with principles. But his hand lingered near my face. But maybe complicated is just another word for interesting. I should have pulled away. Should have maintained professional boundaries. Should have remembered all the reasons this was a terrible idea. Instead, I leaned into his touch. I should go, I said, not moving. Start investigating Stefano. You should. Neither of us moved. Then his phone rang, shattering the moment. He pulled away to answer it, speaking rapid Italian. When he hung up, his expression was grim. Carlo just called an emergency family meeting for Monday. The vote is happening sooner than I thought. That gives me 3 days. I know, I'm sorry. If there was more time, 3 days is enough. I'll find something. I stood, grabbed my bag, and headed for the door. But I stopped at the threshold and turned back. Dante? For what it's worth, I think you're already a better man than you give yourself credit for. Says the woman who's investigating my family to save my position as a mob boss. Says the woman who's seen you try to do the right thing, even when it's hard. That counts for something. After I left, I sat in my car for several minutes, trying to process what had just happened. The investigation was one thing, but that moment on the couch, the way he'd touched my face, the admission of attachment, that was something else entirely. I was developing feelings for Dante Bellasante. Real feelings, beyond professional respect or moral complexity. And that was a problem. Because if his family succeeded in removing him, I wouldn't just lose a client. I'd lose someone I was starting to care about. Which meant I couldn't let them succeed. I pulled out my phone and called Marco. I need surveillance equipment. Bugs, cameras, recording devices, and I need them tonight. What are you planning? Something stupid and probably illegal. Can you help? For Mr. Bellasante? Yes. I'll have everything ready in 2 hours. The next 3 days were a blur of surveillance, investigation, and increasingly risky decisions. With Marco's help, I installed listening devices in Stefano's car, his office, and his apartment. I hacked his email accounts. Illegal, but I was past caring about minor crimes. I followed him to meetings and photographed everyone he met with. What I found was worse than simple conspiracy. Stefano, Carlo, and Luca weren't just plotting to remove Dante, they were planning to kill him. The evidence was in an email chain I'd recovered from Stefano's deleted files. Coded language, but clear enough. Permanent solution, remove the obstacle, clean transfer of power. They were going to make it look like a rival organization had taken him out. And they were planning to do it the day after the family vote, whether they won or lost. If they won the vote, Dante would be weakened and vulnerable. If they lost, he'd be celebrating and off guard. Either way, they'd have their opportunity. I sat in my car outside Stefano's apartment at 2 in the morning, staring at the recovered emails on my tablet, feeling sick. Dante needed to see this. Now. I called him. He answered on the second ring, voice alert despite the late hour. Maya, what's wrong? I found something. Something bad. I'm coming to you now. It's 2 a.m. I don't care. This can't wait. 20 minutes later, I was at Dante's house, an actual house in the suburbs, not the office downtown. Marco had given me the address and security codes. Dante met me at the door wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt, hair mussed from sleep. It was the most casual I'd ever seen him. Come in, he said, concern evident on his face. What did you find? I handed him the tablet. Read the email chain. All of it. I watched his face as he read, watched the color drain from it, watched his expression cycle through disbelief, anger, and finally cold fury. They're going to kill me. Yes. Monday night, after the vote, they've hired someone from out of state. Professional hit. He set down the tablet carefully, his hands shaking slightly. My own family. I'm sorry. Don't be. You probably just saved my life. He looked at me. This changes everything. I can't just expose them at the family meeting. If I do that, they might move up their timeline. So what do? I move first. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Marco, I need you at my house. Now. Bring Antonio and Vincent. Emergency. Within 30 minutes, his living room was full of men in various states of undress, all looking alert and dangerous. Maya found evidence that Carlo is planning to have me killed, Dante said, without preamble. He passed around the tablet. Read it. All of you. The men read in silence. Their expressions ranged from shock to rage. This is a death sentence under family law, Antonio said quietly. Plotting to kill the head of the family. There's no coming back from that. I know, Dante said. which means I need to act before the Monday meeting. I need to bring this to the family council and demand Carlo's expulsion. That's risky, Vincent said. If the council is already leaning toward Carlo, then I'll change their minds. This evidence is irrefutable. Carlo violated the most sacred rule of the family. The council will have to act. What about the hitman? Marco asked. If Carlo hired someone, I have people looking into it. Once we identify him, we'll handle it. They discussed logistics for another hour before everyone left except Marco, who insisted on staying to provide security. After Marco disappeared into a guest room, Dante and I were finally alone. You should go home, he said. Get some sleep. This has been... I'm not leaving. Maya, your family wants you dead. I'm not leaving you alone until this is resolved. I have Marco. You have me too. Deal with it. A slight smile. You're very stubborn. You're very in danger. Stubborn seems appropriate. He studied me for a moment, then nodded. Guest room is upstairs. Second door on the left. There's clothes in the closet. Sophia keeps spare things for unexpected guests. Thank you. I headed for the stairs but stopped halfway up. Dante? Whatever happens Monday, you should know that I don't regret this. Any of it. Even the complicated parts. Even the part where you're working for a mob boss? Especially that part. Because that mob boss kept his word and tried to be better. That matters. I went upstairs before he could respond, before I could say something even more revealing. But as I lay in an unfamiliar bed, staring at an unfamiliar ceiling, I knew the truth. I wasn't just invested in Dante's success as a business arrangement. I was invested in him, in who he was trying to become. And if his family succeeded in killing him, I didn't know what I would do. Monday came too quickly. The family council meeting was held in a private room at a restaurant I didn't recognize. Somewhere neutral, apparently, so no one felt they had home advantage. I wasn't allowed inside. This was family business, Dante explained. But I waited in the car with Marco, both of us tense and alert. How long do these usually take? I asked after the first hour. Depends. Could be 2 hours, could be 6. Family politics are complicated. We waited. 3 hours? 4. My phone buzzed. A text from Dante. It's done. Coming out. What does that mean? I asked Marco. We'll find out. 5 minutes later, Dante emerged from the restaurant. He looked exhausted but victorious. He got in the car and immediately pulled me into a hug. It's over, he said. Carlo, Stefano, and Luca have been expelled from the family. Unanimous vote. They're out. What about the hitman? We found him. He's been handled. I decided not to ask what handled meant. So you're safe? I'm safe. The organization is safe. And I have you to thank for that. He pulled back to look at me. You saved my life, Maya. Again. Just doing my job. This was more than a job. You put yourself at risk to help me. You could have walked away, taken your evidence to the authorities, washed your hands of all of this. I could have. I didn't want to. Why? I thought about lying, about deflecting, but I was tired of pretending. Because I care about you, and I want to see you succeed, and because maybe, possibly, I'm developing feelings that are completely inappropriate given our professional relationship. His smile was genuine and warm. Good. Because I've been developing completely inappropriate feelings too. Dante. I know. This is complicated. You're my consultant. I'm a mob boss trying to go legitimate. There are about 17 reasons why this is a terrible idea. He cupped my face in both hands. But I don't care. I want to try. If you'll let me. I should have said no. Should have maintained boundaries. Instead, I kissed him. It was brief, tentative, full of uncertainty. But it felt right. When we broke apart, Marco cleared his throat from the front seat. Should I drive somewhere specific? Or just circle the block while you two sort out your feelings? Despite everything, the danger, the complexity, the moral ambiguity, I laughed. Just take us home, Marco. 6 months later, I was in Dante's office. Our office now, since I'd moved in after the assassination attempt, reviewing files for another property audit when he walked in carrying champagne and 2 glasses. We're celebrating, he announced. Celebrating what? As of today, I'm officially out of all illegal operations. The last of the criminal enterprises has been sold off or shut down. Belisante Industries is now completely, entirely, 100% legitimate. I set down the file and stared at him. You did it. You actually did it. We did it. None of this would have happened without you pushing me, helping me, believing I could be more than what I was. He poured the champagne and handed me a glass. To new beginnings, he said. To redemption. To us. We clinked glasses. What happens now? I asked. Now we build something new. Together. If you want to. I turned down your $1 million, made you beg for my help instead. Investigated your family. Saved your life. I think we're a little past if I want to. So that's a yes? That's a yes. He kissed me then, properly this time, champagne forgotten on the desk. And somewhere in that kiss, I realized something. I'd set out to make a mob boss beg for my help. Instead, he'd made me fall in love with him, which meant we'd both won. Or maybe we'd both lost track of who was supposed to be in control. Either way, I didn't regret a single complicated, morally ambiguous, completely inappropriate moment of it. Because the Mafia boss had offered me $1 million to look away, and I'd made him beg to